The best way to find a long-term rental is to be...
The first thing you need to know is what documents are required to rent in Greece. After renting, you will need to set up contracts directly with utilities.
Don't forget to check the heating system. Greece can get chilly in the winter. If you see ads in English, they often target foreigners.
Renting long-term in Greece usually means a 2-3 years contract.
The best time to look for long-term rentals in Greece is during...
Be aware of extra costs.
If you're planning to move to Greece, these tips will save you money and time, help you avoid common mistakes and scams, and are full of useful information you need to know. We've moved many times over the years and have picked up a lot of helpful advice that we're excited to share with you. Let's get started.
The first thing you need to know is what documents are required to rent in Greece. A valid ID or a passport, your Greek tax number, and possibly proof of income.
Make sure to apply for your Greek tax number early, as you will need it to open a bank account, work, rent a house, and get utilities connected.
Then do your research. Set your budget, choose a location, and decide on the size of the accommodation you need.
Tip number 1. Start your research early and use multiple platforms. The best time to look for long-term rentals in Greece is during winter, as landlords prefer short-term rentals in the summer.
To find a good rental, use different methods. Check local websites like Spitogatos and Se. Explore local Facebook groups like Living in Crete, Expats in Greece, including those for specific nationalities like Brits in Crete, Americans in Greece. You can also find listings on Marketplace, and asking locals about available properties is a good option too.
Use website filters to focus on your preferred area. Check listings regularly and enable notifications for new ones. When you find a place you like, call the owner or the agent immediately to arrange a viewing as soon as possible. Don't wait or rely on emails. If there's no answer, send a text and set a reminder to call again in 1 hour.
Tip number 2. Research neighborhood. Choosing the right location is very important. It can significantly impact your costs. A cheaper remote place might save on rent, but cost more in time, fuel, and car maintenance. Think about the convenience of public transportation, parking and commute times to places like work, school, grocery stores, and the beach. Make a list of your needs and priorities to help you decide on the best location for you.
Tip number 3. Visit and inspect properties. The best way to find a long-term rental is to be in the area. Start with a short-term rental and give yourself at least 2 weeks to adjust and find the right place. Check out the video in the description for short-term rental tips. Schedule in-person visits to inspect the property's condition, amenities, and neighborhood, as photos sometimes can give you a false impression of the layout and condition of the property. Always see the property in person before making decisions, and never make down payments before viewing to avoid scams. We'll cover those later in this video. Before your viewings, make a list of all your questions to ask during your appointment.
A list will help you not forgetting about important things. Tip number 4. Understand the lease terms and be aware of the additional costs. Make sure you read all the details of the contract, like duration, renewal terms, and any other obligations. Renting long-term in Greece usually means a 2-3 years contract, although you might find 1 year or even 6 months options. If you stay beyond the initial lease, it continues until both agree otherwise. Be aware of extra costs like agent fees and deposits. Deposits are usually 1 or 2 months rent and return if the property isn't damaged. Using an agent adds about 1 month's rent in fees.
Getting a tax number is an additional cost to consider as well.
If you find these tips useful, make sure to join our community group, a space for like-minded people to connect, help, and inspire each other. The link is in the description.
Tip number 5. Negotiate when possible. You can sometimes negotiate the rent or deposit amount, especially if the property has been listed for a while. The agent can help with negotiating the rent. Once you make an offer, the agent will take it to the landlord. They can also advise you if the landlord is likely to accept your offer or how much they might be willing to reduce the cost.
Tip number 6. Connectivity and utilities. Make sure to ask about average utility costs, as for long-term rentals, utilities are not included in the rent.
Check the quality of essential utilities like water, electricity, and internet services. If you're planning to work from home, checking internet options before renting could save you some troubles later. Don't forget to check the heating system. Greece can get chilly in the winter.
After renting, you will need to set up contracts directly with utility providers for electricity, water, and internet. Remember, you will need a tax number to do this in Greece. Sometimes you can also ask the landlord to handle the utility contracts.
This is what we did. All the contracts are in their names and we get the bills and pay them. Tip number 7. Be aware of possible scams. Scams can happen in Greece too. Although they are not very common, it's good to be aware. If you see ads in English, they often target foreigners and may be more expensive. Never hand over money without a signed contract. We know it might be tempting to secure housing before arriving, but this could make you vulnerable to scammers who may take advantage of your situation.
Check local prices and compare listings to avoid paying too much. Staying informed can save you money.
We've seen many scams over the years, especially when we were looking for houses in UK. When you're desperate, when you're out of options, when you really want to find a house, you're not fully aware of all the details. And this can make you fall for scams because maybe usually when you're in a comfortable situation, you're paying more attention to everything. But when you're in a desperate situation or you're rushing or maybe just being in a different country and you don't know how things are, how things work there, it will just make you believe whatever you read, whatever you see. You need to pay extra attention when it comes to renting a house. We've seen many scams on Facebook Marketplace specifically. They take photos from Airbnbs, they post them on Facebook Marketplace, they even rent the place and they make viewings so you can see the place, and then they would ask for a cash deposit to hold the place for you until you sign the contract. They rent the place for, let's say, a day or two. Meanwhile, they have many viewings and take a lot of deposits and they just run away, and that's it.
This is something to be aware of. And there are multiple scams, but we will cover this in a future video. We will dedicate a video specifically for scams.
I think when it comes to scams,
don't pay anything online without seeing the person, without seeing the place, without seeing the proper documentation. And even with the proper documentation, you will go to an accountant to make the contract. If you liked and enjoyed this video, make sure you check out this one too. It will give you a lot of useful information.